James Clear is the author of the New York Times best-selling book Atomic Habits, which has sold more than 1 million copies worldwide. He went from being a star athlete in high school, failing in his first entrepreneurial venture, to becoming a successful travel photographer, blogger, author, and even an expert on habits and self-improvement. Need motivation?
What's the top 10 with Believe Nation?
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, James Clear, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Master the art of showing up.
People have heard things like this before. Start small, small steps, whatever. But even when you know you should start small, it's still really easy to start too big. So, say you want to get in shape and you're like, all right, I want to run a couple days a week, but I know I should start small, so I'll only run for 15 minutes. But even that is like way bigger than what I'm talking about. I mean, it should be so small that in the book I call it the 2-minute rule, but you should downscale any habit to fit within 2 minutes. So it's like, all right, I want to go for a run 3 days a week. My habit is I put on my running shoes and I step out the door. Anything else that happens after that is just bonus.
Is a success.
Now, sometimes people resist that because they're like, well, this sounds kind of like a mental trick, right? Like I know the real goal isn't just to put my shoes on. I know the real goal is to go for a run. So if you feel that way, my suggestion would be only do the first 2 minutes for the first few weeks. Because what you need to do is master the art of showing up. Like I had a reader who ended up losing over 100 pounds. And one of the things that he did was he went to the gym, but he wasn't allowed to stay for longer than 5 minutes. So he would show up, be there, do like half an exercise, 5 minutes would go, he'd leave. He did this for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
Now, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds silly because it's the opposite.
Just work out for a half hour.
Yeah. But what he was doing was mastering the art of showing up. And a habit must be established before it can be improved. Right? If you don't establish the habit, there's nothing to optimize. If you're not showing up at the gym every day, who cares about what workout you're doing? You're not even there.
Don't start running an hour a day if you've never run in a long time.
Be the person who shows up and puts their running shoes on every day before you worry about how far you're running and what kind of workout you're doing and all that type of stuff.
Rule number 2, don't obsess about the numbers.
There's this thing called Goodhart's Law that says a measure ceases to be a good measure when it becomes the target. And so the point is, like, imagine you're trying to lose weight. If you use the scale as a measurement, as a data point, then yeah, it can be useful as like one signal into your overall health. But if it becomes the target, if the whole mission of getting in shape becomes about making the scale go lower, well, then you start doing a lot of unhealthy things just to get the scale to move. You may do some crazy juice cleanse or some kind of radical diet, or you end up doing unhealthy things in the name of moving the number. And I think that there's a lot of application of that in creativity and business as well. If the number becomes the target, then you kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. And so I feel like I try to remind myself that measurements are just a piece of the larger puzzle, and I can use them to inform and make sure I'm moving in the right direction, but don't spend too much time obsessing over any individual metric.
Rule number 3, seek actual value.
Why is something rewarding? Why do you find it rewarding? And one of the reasons is because it satisfies the craving that preceded the action. So one way to put this is that perceived value motivates you to act. Actual value motivates you to repeat. So when you buy something on Amazon, you don't actually buy the product. Like you don't buy the book because you don't actually have it yet. What you buy is the image the product creates in your mind. Mm-hmm. You buy your expectation or the perceived value of the sales page. It's only after you get the book and you read it and you're like, oh, this is really good. That's when the actual value, it satisfies that craving you had before, and it reinforces, oh, hey, this was enjoyable. I should do it again next time. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have both of those on each side of the behavior.
Rule number 4, choose people with shared behaviors.
Social norms. Society leans heavily on us all. So there are just broad examples of this.
Family pressure, religious pressure, media pressure,
all kinds of stuff.
Peer pressure, everything.
Yes. let's say, so just some broad examples. You walk into an elevator and you turn around to face the front. You have a job interview and you wear a suit and tie or a dress or something nice. There's no reason it has to be that way, right? Like you could face the back of the elevator, you could wear a swimsuit to a job interview, but you don't do that because it violates the shared norms of the group, right? It violates the shared expectations of what that society has. But that's true not only in a broad sense that we're part of these tribes, like big tribes, you know, what it means to be a Christian or to be American or to be Australian or whatever, but it's also true in the small tribes that we belong to, what it means to be a neighbor on this street or a member of your local CrossFit gym or to volunteer for a local organization. All of those tribes, all of those groups that you belong to have a set of shared expectations, a set of shared norms. And the key, if you want to build habits that last, if you want to change the way that you interpret cues, is to join a group where the desired behavior is the normal behavior, right? Like there are plenty of people who they want to work out, but going to the gym feels like a lot to them. It feels hard, feels like a sacrifice. But there are also people who go to the gym every week and it's just normal. It doesn't feel like an obligation. That's the desired behavior is the normal behavior.
It's their lifestyle.
Right. Same thing for musicians, you know, like if you want to learn an instrument, hang out with people who play all the time. You know, like if you hang out with a bunch of musicians, it's like, well, yeah,
that's what we do all day.
We play 4 days a week. We play 7 days a week because it just happens. That's what the tribe does. The caveat to this, and the thing that I don't see people mention a lot, is that the reason social norms influence our behavior so much is because we want to belong to the tribe. We want to be friends with those people. And so we don't want to lose the friendship or lose belonging over violating the norms.
Yeah, you're not going to hang out with a bunch of vegans and have pork.
Right.
And just like be the only one eating that.
You won't hang out with them for very long because you're not going to be friends with them anymore.
Exactly.
Right? They'll kick you out.
So you want to rise to the standard of that group, of that community.
So the key, I think, is to join a group where your desired behavior is a normal behavior and you already have something else in common with that group. So Steve Cam is a good example of this. So like Steve runs Nerd Fitness, right? And all these people want to get in shape who are coming into his community, but they also love Star Wars or Batman or Spider-Man or, you know, all these other things that nerds are into. And if you show up, it can be intimidating to want to get in shape or, you know, work out the first time. But if you can connect with the group over your mutual love of Star Wars, then you're like, oh, well, I'm friends with these people. And now I also want to pick up those other habits with them because I want to belong with the group because we're already friends. And so I think you can apply that methodology to most new tribes that you join. Don't just join a new tribe because they have the desired behavior. Also try to find a way that you can overlap with them. Find some shared context.
Some other stuff too, yeah.
That you can bond over, and then it's easier to adopt the habits.
Musicians that like to be healthy.
Yeah, right.
If you want to do both, right? It's like finding that even subgroup.
It's like, hey, we love playing music, and then also you're going to start eating better because we all want to eat healthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, if you want to have more motivation, self-love, and unstoppable confidence, check out my 254 series. They're free. The links to join are in the description below.
You can outwork anybody, no matter how badass they are.
And I looked at him and I said, I'm not a brand. I'm a person.
A lot of the anxiety that we feel is actually due to using words that are not defined very well.
Rule number 5, find a different system.
This is coming from someone who's been very goal-oriented for a long time. So I would set goals for the grades I wanted to get in school, or the weights I wanted to lift in the gym, or the amount of revenue I wanted in my business, or how many email subscribers I wanted, like all of that. And at some point I realized, I'm setting all these goals, like am I actually achieving some of them? And sometimes I would, but there were plenty of times where I failed. And so I had this realization that, well, if that's the case, then setting a goal cannot be the thing that means whether or not I achieve success. And if you think about this, the winners and losers in any domain, a lot of the time they have the same goals. Like every person who applies for a job has the goal of getting the job. Every Olympian has the goal of winning the gold medal. And so if winners and losers have the same goals, then the goal can't be the thing that makes the difference. And I don't mean that goals are useless. I think goals are actually quite useful for setting a sense of direction or knowing, what area the boat should be pointed in, what direction the boat should be pointed in, and where you're trying to row. But once you've decided that, it's probably more useful to put the goal on the shelf and focus exclusively on the system or the process. And in my language, habits make up the system. And they're like this collection of behaviors and patterns that you perform each day. And when you put them all together, you end up with this system that delivers a result. And whatever your results are in life or in business or wherever, your current system is perfectly designed to deliver them. It has to be, by definition. That's why you're getting those results. So if you want different results, what you need is not really a different goal. What you need is a different system.
Rule number 6, handle your habits.
This is one of the most common, criticisms or complaints that people ask me about with habits is like, well, I don't want to be robotic, right? Like, what about like spontaneity? What about the, freedom and doing what I want? I don't want to like pigeonhole myself in this lifestyle. But it's this false dichotomy because habits don't restrict freedom. They create it. It's often the people who have the worst habits that have the least amount of freedom. It's the people who have terrible financial habits that are always wondering like where the next dollar will come from. Or it's the people who have poor learning habits that are always feeling like they're behind the curve. Or people who have poor fitness habits that are always struggling to find energy. But on the other hand, if you have your habits dialed in, if you have your fitness habits figured out, if you've got your finances handled, then you actually have way more freedom than you did before. Now you actually have the space you have the energy to do what you want. You have the strength to do what you want. You have the financial ability to spend time in areas that you want. And all of that comes from getting your habits handled. So it is a little counterintuitive, this idea that like discipline equals freedom or habits do not restrict freedom, they create it. But it's true that if you can handle that stuff, if the fundamentals of life are dialed in, then you've got space for spontaneity and creativity and freedom and all the other stuff.
Rule number 7, understand your desires.
In a sense, you could say that every behavior is driven by the desire for a change in state. And so when you smoke a cigarette or eat a bag of Doritos or pick up your phone, what you really want is not the nicotine or the calories from the Doritos or the likes on social media. What you want is to feel less anxious or to feel approved or to not be bored anymore. So it's really the desire to change that state that you're in that motivates you to act. And the behavior, and in many cases, a lot of our modern technology is an example of this. We didn't evolve. You didn't come out of the womb with like a desire to check Instagram, right? There's nothing evolutionarily wired there. It's just a modern manifestation of an ancient desire to gain respect and approval, or to not be abandoned by the tribe, or to feel approved in some capacity. And so we kind of have those like deeper primal drives. And then the secondary layer on top of it is just the modern manifestation of that behavior and how we're resolving it in the moment.
Rule number 8, change your interpretations.
The first stage of every habit is a cue. The second stage is a craving or some kind of prediction that your brain makes. I'll give you an example of these in a second. The third stage is the response, and then the fourth stage is the reward. So you walk into the question I had that no model I could find could solve in any good way or explain in any good way was, why can the same person respond to the same cue in a different way? So let's say you get into the habit of going to the gym at 5 o'clock every day, but then sometimes work gets busy and you don't go to the gym at 5 o'clock. Current models don't explain that very well, because it's like, well, the cue is 5, you should be going to the gym right now. It says the routine follows automatically after the cue. Or why does someone walk into the kitchen and see a plate of cookies and then they automatically want to eat it? But you could just as easily imagine that you just got done eating dinner in the other room and you're stuffed and you're full, and you walk in and you see a plate of cookies and you're like, I'm stuffed, I don't want to eat anything. So what's going on there? And I think these 4 stages explain it, which is you see the cue or you experience a cue, and then your craving or your prediction differs based on your current state. So the way that you interpret the cues in your life is contingent upon the current state that you're in.
The way you're feeling.
Right. And also other things like your beliefs or your identity, the social group that you're part of, right? So like if you're in a different group, then maybe you interpret things in a different way. You could imagine one group, they practice a particular religion, they walk into a butcher shop and see pork and they're like, oh, we can't eat that.
Right.
Another person walks in and they're like, oh yeah, I'll have a pork sandwich because it's obvious and easy and right there. So what you choose is contingent upon how you interpret the cues in your life.
Rule number 9, focus on the better process.
It's this idea between the system and the goal. And, like say you're playing a sport. In every sport, the goal is to have the best score on the scoreboard at the end of the game. But it would be ridiculous to spend all game looking at the scoreboard because it wouldn't help you in any way. So in fact, if you just ignored the score the entire time and just focused on a better process or playing a better way or a better scheme or strategy, then you probably would end up with the best score. I think Bill Walsh, he was the Super Bowl winning head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. He had this quote. It was like, the score takes care of itself. And that I think that probably applies to a lot of tracking and measurement.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is be aware of your habits.
There are a couple ways to think about it, but I would say, just quick definition, a habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to be performed more or less automatically. So you can do it pretty much on autopilot. But another way to think about it, and I think this is a useful way to define a habit, is that as you go through life, you face different problems. And some of those problems are big and some of them are small, like you need to tie your shoes. And whenever you face a problem, your brain starts looking for solutions to that. And as you come across solutions to the recurring problems in life, you start to automate those. And so every morning you wake up and you put your shoes on and you got this little problem that you need to solve. And pretty soon, after you tie your shoes 100 times or 500 times or 1,000 times, you can do it pretty much without thinking. And so that's another way of thinking about habits, is that they're kind of these like automatic solutions we fall into for whatever the recurring problems are we face.
Right. Behavior that becomes habituated.
Yeah. And, you know, like the interesting thing about this is you don't necessarily have to have the same habit to solve a recurring problem. Like if you come home from work each day and you feel stressed and exhausted, one person might play video games for an hour, and that's a way to resolve that problem. So they get in the habit of doing it, and they just walk over to the controller. They don't even think about it. Another person might go for a run for 20 minutes or meditate for 10 minutes. A third person might smoke a cigarette. And all of those are just solutions to that problem that you're facing. And that, I think, is another powerful lesson, is that your original habit is not necessarily the optimal one. And once you realize that, then it kind of becomes your responsibility to become a little more aware of what those habits are, and then think about, can you shape them or design them?
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video? And write down in the comments below when you're going to take action on that takeaway this week. When you schedule in what day, what time, and what place you're going to take action, you have a 91% chance of actually following through, compared to just 35% if you just got motivated but never created a plan. And when you share your plan and have accountability, you give yourself an even higher chance of following through. So in the comments below, write down your single biggest takeaway as well as your specific plan of action, because I want to celebrate with you.
In a sense, habits are the path through which you can reshape your self-image. Because if you, and this is one reason why I believe in small habits, you know, if you say you have a really crazy day at work and you don't have time to do a full workout, well, doing 5 push-ups, it's easy to like dismiss that and be like, well, that's not going to do anything. It doesn't get me in shape. But if you do 5 push-ups, then you cast a vote for the identity of, I'm the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. Even if it wasn't ideal, even if I didn't have much time, even if the best I could do after this 12-hour flight was to do 5 push-ups and then crash in the hotel bed, I still didn't miss a workout. And the cumulative effect of that, of reinforcing your desired identity, I think is really big in the long run. And if it's meaningful, then it actually is big, even if the action is small. And so that's one reason I believe in small habits, is that they are the pathway through which you can like reshape your self-image. And that, I think, is the real reason habits matter. It's true, habits can help you get in shape or be more productive or reduce stress or make more money. And all those external results are great. But the real thing that they do is they reinforce and embody the identity of the type of person that you want to be.
To change your life for free in the next 30 days, check the link below me. Or if you want 10 more awesome rules from Brendan Burchard, click the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy them. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.